For your ears only for the week of June 7th, I'm David Alpern.
I'm Catherine Herzog with this news quote. He would put this mask on, but behind it was a shattered version of the man I knew. That was Susan Ullman on her husband, a 4-tour Special Forces veteran of the Afghan War, who turned to drink and domestic violence before killing himself, one of a rising tide of such Special Forces suicides, nearly 50 in the last 2.5 years. Now this.
This morning, I called Bob and Janie Bergdahl and told them that after nearly 5 years in captivity, their son Bo is coming home.
He served the United States with honor and distinction.
He wrote to his parents, quote, "I have seen their ideas about his commanding officers, and I am ashamed to even be American. The horror of the self-righteous arrogance that they thrive in, it is all revolting."
This is a pattern of behavior by this White House. He believes somehow that he's become a monarch or an emperor that can basically ignore the law and do whatever he wants.
Soldiers, sailors, and airmen of the Allied Expeditionary Force, you are about to embark upon the great crusade toward which we have striven these many months. The eyes of the world are upon you.
Even the stirring memories of D-Day in Normandy, launched by General Dwight Eisenhower 70 years ago last week, could not quiet the military diplomatic muddle launched days earlier by President Obama with a surprise announcement he had traded 5 top Taliban from Guantanamo for the last American hostage in Afghanistan. It did not help that National Security Advisor Susan Rice used heroic terms to describe Sergeant Bo Bergdahl after years of published reports that he actually left his post under controversial circumstances, or that Obama failed to give congressional leaders the 30-day notice required for a Guantanamo release, as noted by Florida's Republican Senator Marco Rubio.
The first administration claim was that speed was essential because of Bergdahl's failing health. Then secrecy was cited as essential to keep him from being killed by some of his terrorist captors not on board with the deal. Overshadowed by the debate on whether Bergdahl was worth it were suggestions he might have been, at least in part, a collateral beneficiary of long-standing U.S. efforts to open lines to the Taliban and shape some political role for them in Afghanistan after U.S. forces are all but gone. To consider all this, current diplomacy at last week's D-Day events and related issues, for your ears only, we're joined again by Lawrence J. Korb, Assistant Secretary of Defense in the Reagan administration, now a senior fellow at the Center for American Progress. Welcome back to the program.
Nice to be with you again.
Was this swap at least in part about resuming communication with the Taliban, giving them a dramatic exchange to video, maybe as much as about getting Bergdahl back?
Well, I think that was part of it because, as you know, about 3 years ago, we tried to start negotiations with the Taliban, and then Karzai did not like the fact that the image they were portraying as co-equals with him. But at some point, you're going to have to negotiate with the Taliban, whether it's us or the Karzai or Abdullah government, because they're going to have a role in the future of Afghanistan.
Was this also a way of getting something in return for further reducing the prisoner population in Guantanamo, to which Obama says he's committed and which might have to be done anyway once major U.S. forces depart Afghanistan?
Right. When the war ends, and, you know, you can say it's 2014 or 2016, depending upon how you view it, but all of our troops will be out by 2016. We'll end our combat role at the end of this year. According to lawyers like John Bellinger, who was a lawyer for President Bush's National Security Council, and Jay Johnson, who was the general counsel at DOD, who's now a Secretary of Homeland Security, when that combat ends, you've got to give these prisoners back, and these prisoners are about the 1/3. There's 1/3 you can transfer, 1/3 you can try. They're the 1/3 you can't try because they didn't do anything to us. They're just horrible people that we grabbed when we first went in there.
Does returning those former Taliban leaders significantly increase the danger to U.S. forces remaining in Afghanistan or encourage more hostage-taking there or elsewhere?
No, that to me is really a straw man. They've been out of touch with the people fighting and the tactics and everything for 13 years. As I told someone, it'd be like bring Michael Jordan to the NBA playoffs and say, okay, get back in there and start guarding LeBron. It just doesn't work that way. So it's really not. And the same way, they've been killing Americans, and you say, well, let's not kill them, let's take them as a hostage. No, that's nonsense.
How do you explain Susan Rice's heroic description of a GI long shadowed by charges of desertion. Did the administration feel it had to make him seem more valuable for the U.S. audience or for the Taliban?
I don't think so. I think she was a little over the top. I mean, basically, it was honorable. He did volunteer at the height of the war. Things were not going well in Iraq and Afghanistan when he joined, and certainly that was honorable. But then to say he served with distinction, given what they knew, because there was a report done right after he was captured by the Taliban that raised a lot of questions.
Let's go back to the D-Day anniversary, where European leaders defied Obama's wishes to keep Russian President Vladimir Putin isolated, and where Obama himself has a 15-minute session with Putin. What impact do you see on pro-Russian provocation in Ukraine?
Well, I think it's important anytime you can communicate. I mean, we communicated with, the Soviet leaders at the height of the Cold War. Eisenhower invited Khrushchev here to the United States right after they were in, Hungary and Poland. And Nixon started negotiating with them right after what they did in Czechoslovakia. So, no, I don't think that's a problem. I mean, the Soviets/Russians, they had 9 million people killed in World War II. They bore much more of the brunt of fighting than we did. So I think, we should work on them at issues we can. They're helping us in and out of Afghanistan. We've got a nuclear treaty. They've been very helpful with Iran. So I think you got to focus on areas where you can work with them.
D-Day also was the background last week for a bipartisan proposal to help a growing number of veterans from the wars that followed World War II to get around overwhelmed medical resources and suspect management, you have to say, at the Veterans Administration. The VA would pay for private health care. What's your view of that?
Well, I think this is something we should have been doing, and I'm glad that Senator McCain, working with Senator Bernie Sanders, who's the chairman of Senate Veterans Committee, but Bernie's been proposing some of these for a while. They've been filibustered, so I think, yes, we need to do it because two things happen. One, about 50% of the people leaving active duty are going to the VA, which is much higher than previous wars. The other is that General Shinseki, when he came in, allowed Vietnam veterans to get help as they get older and things happen because it could have been Agent Orange. We don't know that for a fact. But I think those two things really overwhelm the system. And, people say, well, you should get more doctors. Doctors aren't going to go work for half of what they can make in the private sector, in the numbers that you need.
Do you think that Shinseki's removal was necessary only because of political pressure or to really reform the VA?
Well, I think given the way he handled it, he was hurting more than he was helping toward the end. I think he was trying to fix the problem, and got caught up in some of the things that I've talked about. I mean, for example, they said, "Well, you should have fired those people." We didn't have the authority to fire them, and given his demeanor, I think a lot of people lost confidence in his ability. I think he recognized that it probably will be better for veterans in the long run.
Lawrence J. Korb, Assistant Secretary of Defense in the Reagan administration, is now a senior fellow at the Center for American Progress.
Quote from the news, "It still kind of bothers me." That was Navajo Indian Chester Nez on all the years of pressure not to speak his native language until it became the basis for his secret code talking in World War II. He died last week at age 93.
Next, from war in Europe and Afghanistan to the so-called war on coal, for your ears only.